Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Module 1 of the School for Change Agents 2018. It's absolutely fantastic to see so many of you joining us today from all around the world. And I know that many of you will be watching this as a recording, many, many more people. So literally thousands of people, thousands of change agents from around the world will be taking part in this module. My name's Helen Bevan, and I'm part of the Horizons team, which is part of the National Health Service in England. And our focus for Module 1 is Change Starts With Me. So, this is the 5th year of the School for Change Agents, and we've had 14,000 people taking part from around the world. And this year, people have signed up, from 45 different countries. And what's amazing is lots of the people that have signed up are in the health and care community. We've got people who work in local government. We've got people that work as coaches and transformation leaders. We've got people that work in universities, change agents from a variety of different industries, all kinds of people. And whatever system we come from, I think that many of the issues and challenges that we face are the same issues. And it's amazing that so many of us have been able to come together in this way. So the first thing I want to do is I want to just tell you about the roles behind the scenes. So, as I said, the School for Change Agents is brought to you by the Horizons team. And we're a very small team inside the National Health Service in England, and we help to support change agents, across our system. And we run the School for Change Agents ourselves, so everybody in our team has a role in the School for Change Agents. So I just want to introduce you to everybody that you'll either be meeting actually or behind the scenes today. So if we start in the top left-hand side and maybe move along. So there am I, Helen Bevan, I'm the main presenter. Here with me, I have got Zoe Lord, who is troubleshooting in the room that I'm in, just to make sure everything goes right for the next hour. Our amazing technical troubleshooter behind the scenes is Ollie, and his job is to make sure that everything works properly. And the person that is actually managing the WebEx today is Pardeep. We've got 2 colleagues who are watching the chat room, and what we'll do a couple of times during this session today, we'll stop and we'll ask them to reflect on what we're seeing in the chat box. And our chat monitors are Kate and Catherine. And what's also happening is the Twitter sphere is going crazy for the School for Change Agents. And again, we really encourage you to tweet using the hashtag, okay, School for Change Agents. So that means you can see it there, S4CA, okay? So if you're going to tweet, if you can put S4CA, then we can pick up your tweets. And what we'll do is during this session, we'll stop and we'll ask our 2 Twitter monitors, who are Lee and Lynette, what is happening. And then behind the scenes, we've got a whole group of people because, it's inevitable, particularly with the first module, that a few people have problems, getting on to the session. So we've got Rosie, Val, Caroline, looking after things behind the scenes. And also, because we're also streaming this live on YouTube and we're making a live YouTube recording, our colleague Dominic is looking after that. So lots of people behind the scenes, and you'll hear some of them today. So let's get going. The first thing that we want to do is going back too many. We've got people with us from all over the world, and I'm going to hand back control to Pardeep, my colleague. And what we're going to do is, can you see on the top left-hand side, there's like an arrow pointer. Can you take that pointer and can you move it to wherever you are in the world? So Pardeep, can you release the arrows? That's great. So hopefully you can pick up an arrow. And, you know, if you can't use your arrow, it's not working for some reason, do you want to just go into the chat box and write where you are? So what we're seeing is, yeah, lots of people, as was expected in the UK, but lots of people in North America as well. I know we've got a big New York contingent, and we've got a very big Canadian contingent. It's great, you know, welcome Sonali. And Sonali, do you want to tell us where you are? And we've got Claudia, who is in South America. That's fantastic. I know that we've got some Australian and New Zealand colleagues with us. Most of them, because of the timescales, tend to watch the recording because this is a bit of a crazy time. But what we can see here is particularly we've got people with us from all over Europe, okay, all over Scandinavia, lots of Brits, lots of people in North America, and we will have most continents. So Pardeep, can we go to the second slide? And on this second slide, what we've got is where in the UK are you? So, Pardeep, can you move us to the where in the UK are you slide? Can you all see the where in the UK are you slide? Okay, again, for those of you that are in the UK, obviously if you're not in the UK, you can't join in this one. But if you can put where you are, then that's fantastic. Wow. And what we're seeing here is, you know, right from Land's End to John O'Groats, okay, we have people taking part. That's really amazing. And we've got Wales, and we've got Northern Ireland, and we've got Southern Ireland as well. So so that's really fantastic. So Pardeep, can you give me back control? We'd like to welcome everybody. So, just a few ideas and rules. So, the whole thing, you know, about the School for Change Agents is it isn't about listening passively to a lecture, it's about engaging with each other. So, please use the chat box, you know, introduce yourself, ask questions, suggest resources, have conversations with other people. Now, just one rule that really helps, because there's so many hundreds of us taking part now, if you're actually replying to someone in the chat box, can you actually start your contribution by their name? So if, for instance, if Zoe made a contribution in the chat box and you want to answer that, can you start your reply to Zoe with @Zoe? And that way we can actually make a thread from some of the conversations rather than just have this kind of huge barrage of contributions. Okay. We've got a group of colleagues from the Horizons team who are, you know, keeping an eye on things. So if you need some support, if things aren't working for you, can you see that you can see halfway down on the right-hand side, there's a little hand symbol, okay? Can you raise your electronic hand if you need any help, and we'll pick you up from there. And if you do raise your hand, if your issue gets resolved, can you put your hand down again? That's great. And then finally, yeah, please do join in on Twitter. And just a few rules for the school. We know everybody's doing their best, and I think particularly with this first session, sometimes it takes a little while to get used to the tech. So please be patient with it, and ask for what you need. So, you know, we're keeping an eye on the chat box the whole time, okay? Ask questions, be curious, and you know, the whole idea is to share and learn from one another. Just to say, this is the 5th year that we've run the School for Change Agents and its predecessors, and we've had this school evaluated formally by the Chartered Institute for Personnel and Development. And the CIPD were kind of blown away by the impact of this school, because what we found is that when people took part in all 5 modules, the school was found to have a positive effect on every dimension of impact that we looked at, and that was at the level of both individual change agents and at the level of their organisations. So, you know, we hope that it will have this impact for you, and we hope that you'll stick with us through all 5 modules. So, we know that it has a positive effect on our knowledge of change, our sense of purpose and our energy and motivation to improve our practice as change agents, our ability and our confidence to challenge the status quo, and we need to do plenty of that, our ability to both rock the boat and challenge things but stay in it, and again we're going to talk about that a little bit more in this module, and I think most importantly our ability to connect with others to build support for change. Now, just a couple more things. The first thing is that in terms of, if you're in the UK, you can use the School for Change Agents for continuing professional development. So nurses, midwives and allied health professionals, certainly in Britain and probably in other parts of the world, you can use this experience as part of your reflective account for revalidation. If you're a doctor, a medic, then we've actually applied for specific credits for the school, and you should be able to get those. And, most excitingly, everybody who takes part in the School for Change Agents can apply to become a certificated change agent. So all you need to do to become a certificated change agent is to take part in all of the school sessions, all 5 of them, either in real time or by watching the recordings. And then I'm going to tell you about our learning platform. Lots of you have signed on to this already, but there's 3 modules in the learning platform, and if you complete all of those, you will become a certificated change agent, and you will get a badge, and you will be able to add this to your continuing professional development portfolio from wherever you are in the world. And to get this certificate and the badge, you need to just complete all 3 of the e-learning modules. And basically all it's about is to watch all the sessions and then to demonstrate that you've applied what you've learned. And then you get a certificated change agent badge. And in previous years, people love their certificated change agent badges, and they appear on emails, they appear on Twitter accounts, and they appear on CVs. So you too can be a certificated change agent. And we'll be giving you more information about this, but basically the way that you do this is by logging on to our learning management system. And if you're new to the school, it's the first year you've done it, we will have sent you details of how to log on. If you've been to the school before and not been a certificated change agent and you want to become one now, you'll need to email us at this email address. And what I'd like to do is to ask some of my colleagues from the Horizons team to put that email address in the chat room now so you can see it as well, but we will be sending you details. So, let's just talk a little bit about what we're going to do each week in the school, This week we are going to look at Change Starts With Me and being a change agent. And what we're then going to do, hang on, there's a problem with my slides, because my slides have disappeared after slide 11. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to stop there a moment. Here they are, they've come back. Week 2, we're going to be looking at the power to make a difference, and particularly we're going to be focusing on change agency, which is our power individually and collectively to make a positive difference, and that's next Thursday, the 22nd. Then the 3rd week, can you see slides? Okay, I can't see slides on my screen. But I can, that's okay because I've got some slides here and I'll work through those. So the next week, which is module 3, we will focus on being resilient and dealing with resistance to change. And lots of change agents say to us that it is really important, to focus on resistance to change and resilience. The next week, which is week 4, Thursday, the 8th of March, we are going to focus on mobilising and organising for change. And what that means is using social movement ideas, community organising to enable us to move from the me and my situation as a change agent to be able to build a we. And then the final module, week 5, is about the change agent of the future and what it means to be a change agent of the future. And I just want to stop there a moment because, one of the key aspects of the School for Change Agents is it's not just focusing on what I know and the skills and the capabilities that I've got, but it's also focused on how I think, okay? And, you know, what I'd say about the School for Change Agents is we don't teach much of the what I know. So, you know, all of us need these things. You know, we need to have an understanding of improvement methods, project management, innovation and design methods, analytics and problem solving, relationship building and so on. You know, these are really key skills, but those aren't the skills that we teach in the School for Change Agents. In the School for Change Agents, it's much more around the how I think. So how I think in ways that are interdependent with other people. And what we mean by that is, you know, one of the things that we say is you can't be a change agent on your own, okay? None of us can. We have to connect with other people. So we have to rely on other people, but in ways that enable us to be who we are and what we need to be in the world, okay? So, you know, actually being able to see systems and patterns and connections, holding different views at the same time, you know, keeping a short-term view and a long-term view, how I'm realistic and yet optimistic, how I'm able to be comfortable with tensions, with issues, paradox, contradictions, you know, being able to be able to work with those at the same time, and how I think the best of people, who I am and how I operate in the world. Okay, all of those things are important, and in a sense, what we teach in the school is much more the right-hand side, how I think, but we also want to develop the left-hand side around what I know. So, let's just get into the meat of Module 1, okay? What we're going to talk about in the next kind of 45 minutes is, firstly, about having the power to make a positive difference, which is what the School for Change Agents is all about. We're going to look at a model for power, which is about old power and new power. If we're going to challenge the status quo and do things differently, then we need to be rebels. You know, we need to be the people on the edge that are challenging the current system. We're going to talk about rocking the boat and staying in it, because in a sense we need to be challenging the status quo and doing things differently, but not in a way where we fall out of the boat and we get into trouble. And finally, we are going to look at where we start from, you know, and our values and what enables us to focus on change in the first place. So we call that starting from a place of love. Just to say that, you know, when we have a school for change agents and we work with change agents, then we work with a fundamental law, okay? And the fundamental law for learning with change agents comes from Dave Weiner, and he says the sum of the expertise of the people in the audience is far greater than the sum of the expertise of the people on stage. And that's certainly the case here today. You know, when I look at hundreds and hundreds of you taking part, and the wisdom and the experience that you all bring, and we really want to share that with each other. And actually, the school is designed on a learning approach, a learning theory that is called connectivism. And what connectivism says is that, you know, people, yes, we can learn by listening to experts, but actually the way that we learn best is when we nurture connections. You know, again, when we look at the different perspectives and experiences we have as a community in the School for Change Agents, how do we learn from each other? So, I thought I'd maybe start the next phase with my own perspective. And at the top of this slide here, what we can see is a piece of installation art. It comes from an artist called Adam Katz. And he took 13,000 little orange plastic soldiers and he put them on the shop window. And it said, what he spelled out was, all of my good ideas are battles. And, you know, when I look back, I've been a change agent, a full-time change agent for 30 years. And this has been the story of my life. You know, I can't think of a certain thing that I've been involved in or I've helped to change or transform that was easy, okay? I can't think of a single thing where somebody said, oh, you know, here's X million pounds or $1 million and a team of people make this change. It's never like that. It's always hard. I think, you know, any of us that are standing up and questioning, those of us that work in the health and care system, when we think about our service users, our patients, and what we're aspiring to do in terms of creating great care that is safe. To challenge the existing order is never an easy thing. And I have a quote here which comes from Thomas Huxley, who was a Victorian evolutionary biologist, and here he was defending Darwin's theory of natural selection, and he says, "New truths begin as heresies." And in a sense, we as change agents, we are heretics, okay? We are bringing a new truth about how change happens. And when you're a heretic, a rebel, a radical, a deviant from the existing order, we never have an easy life. But I hope that, being part of the community of the School for Change Agents can really help you to be a effective heretic with pride. Okay? At the base of everything that we think and we teach in the School for Change Agents is the issue of power. Okay? So the School for Change Agents is very much focused on building power. And the definition of power that we use is this one here. This comes from Bertrand Russell, who is the father of modern logic. And he says, power is one's ability to achieve goals. And, when we think about us as change agents, where we are in the world, okay, we strive to make a difference. We strive to create positive outcomes for the people that we serve, okay? So power is our ability to achieve that goal. So focusing on power is very important. And here's an example from a piece of research that my team was involved in a little while ago, and we commissioned a learning review across the whole of the National Health Service in England. And what we got back, okay, the most kind of common view that we got back from our colleagues across the whole of the front line, so doctors, nurses, allied health professionals and support workers and so on, was, I don't feel that I can even make very small changes in my service. I don't think I can improve things because I haven't got permission, okay? Just so many of our colleagues felt powerless. So in a sense, what we focus on is how to build power. And the School for Change Agents is about building agency and being an agent, okay? So let's start off by defining change agency, okay? What we want to do collectively is that we want to build our power, okay, to make a difference. And change agency is about having the power, both as an individual and collectively with other people, to make a positive difference, okay? It's about pushing the boundaries of what's possible, mobilizing other people and making change happen more quickly, okay? So over the next 5 weeks, it's all about how we build agency, okay? And we are agents, okay, who utilize agency. And again, our definition of a change agent in the School for Change Agents is somebody who is actively developing the skills, the confidence, building their own power, building relationships and connections with others, and having the courage to make a positive difference. So when we talk about power, this is one of the models that we like the best, okay? And it's about making a contrast between old power and new power. I think this is very, very helpful when it comes to us as change agents. So when we talk about old power is like a currency. It's like money. A few people have got a lot of it, but most people haven't. And old power is positional authority, okay? So it's held by a few people. It's pushed down in organizations. And we're commanded to do things. So again, I'll give you health examples, but you have to do that because it's the emergency department waiting time target, or you have to do that because it is the performance agreement with the buyer or the commissioner, or you have to do that because it's the quality standard, or you have to do that because it's necessary to balance the books. And old power ends at the doors of an organisation. So if I'm the leader, for instance, of a hospital system and I'm working with leaders of my local community, I can't command them to do anything. And old power is largely about transactions, it's about holding people to account. It's about governance. It's about systems and structures. Okay? So, you know, I think many of us live in systems that are about old power. What we're also seeing is a new kind of power, new power. Okay? And this idea about new power comes from a new book, which is published by Jeremy Hymans and Henry Timms about new power, and it's going to be published in the UK on the 19th of April. Those of you in the USA will get it a little bit earlier. But what this is about is, you know, how can we think about power in a different way for a new world? And they talk about new power being like a current, you know, it's like a surge of energy. When people come together with a common goal, then power grows. So it's made by many people coming together. And, you know, we pull new power into our organisations, and the more people that engage, then the more power we have. And new power is shared by many. It's open. Anybody who agrees with our approach can be part of our new power movement. And largely, new power is about relationships. And, you know, one of the differences between new power and old power, I'd say, is that people engage in new power because they want to, not because they have to. So, I take part, I'm mobilised, I'm engaged, I take part in change, whereas old power is much more, you have to do it because it's the performance target or it's the quality standard and so on. And, you know, new power is all about relationships, and it's based on trust. Because basically, if I freely give my time and my effort and my energy to engage in change that is about new power, if things don't get followed up and my expectations don't get met, I won't engage again. I won't be mobilised again. Now, those of us that work in the health and care system, you know, some people are forecasting the demise of old power. I don't think old power will be going away from any health and care system that I know any time soon. Okay? I think we have a very strong old power mechanisms. But what we're starting to see is like a layer of new power coming on the top that creates all kinds of opportunities for us. So, you know, for us as change agents, where we need to be in the world is we need to be able to operate in that very difficult zigzaggy place between old power and new power. Okay, I've seen lots of examples of you know, people with formal power trying to transform a whole system in a top-down way. Okay, the reality is it doesn't work. Okay, it's very, very hard to sustain. When you push change on people, it's very hard to keep it. Okay. On the other hand, I've seen lots of local activists who do amazing things in local settings, but then they butt up against the wall of old power and it can't go any further. So we need to be able to work with both. So, you know, once you start to work with new power, you can't kind of turn around and go backwards if it doesn't work. I've got a very nice quote here from Nilufer Merchant, and she says, you know, if people engage in new power, if they give to a cause, then they're expecting a relationship, not a transaction. So if I as a leader start to work in this way and then I don't like it and want to go back to old power, you know, it can create an awful lot of problems. So we as change agents need to be able to mobilise others and work with new power very effectively, but we need to be able to do it in an old power world. And, you know, there's lots of evidence that backs up our ability to do this. This is a piece of research, actually this is Canadian research, so high shout out to all our Canadian colleagues with us today. This research was called, or the article that appeared from it, was called The Network Secrets of Great Change Agents by Battalana and Casciaro, these two Canadian researchers. And they went into a very big organisational system and they followed 67 change projects around this system. And what they wanted to understand was, what makes the biggest difference in terms of being an effective change agent? Okay, so first of all, let's look in the chat box. Does anybody know, who hasn't seen this before, what is the name of the very big organisational system that these Canadian researchers went round? Okay, anybody want to have a guess in the chat box? Yeah. So some of you know it already, okay? So lots of you. So Madelon knows it, Mandy knows it, Lisa knows it. Actually, it was the English National Health Service. So these researchers went round 67 projects in the NHS. And you know, what they found was that being an effective change agent and being able to make change happen was much more about being in the centre of the informal network and being able to make change happen informally than it was with having the positional power of being at the top of the formal hierarchy, okay? So, you know, sometimes, you know, we work with students and trainee doctors and, you know, newly qualified registered nurses, and they say, I've got no power to make a difference. Actually, you know, we have an awful lot of power. Again, this comes from Leandro Herrero, who writes about viral change. And what his studies show is that people who are highly connected in an organisation have got twice as much power to influence change as people with hierarchical power. Okay? So, you know, if we can be the kind of change agents who are highly connected, who can work in relational ways, okay, and be consistent, then we can make change happen. So I'm just going to give notice to my colleagues that are looking after the chat box and the Twitter to just say in a couple of minutes I'm going to ask you to give us a bit of an update in what's happening on the Twitter sphere and what's happening in the chat box. Okay, so one more little section I just want to show you. You know, what we're finding, okay, is you know, as we're moving into a more social world, it's creating all kinds of opportunities and new knowledge. So this is some analysis that comes from Innovisor, okay, it's organisational network analysis, and they go into lots of different organisations, and what they're finding typically in organisation after organisation is that about 3% of people in the organisational system, they influence about 85% of the other people. So if we want to make big change happen in an organisational system, rather than trying to, you know, push it down through the hierarchy, okay, let's find our 3%, because they are people who are talking to and influencing other people all the time, okay? So I guess, you know, one of the questions for you is, who are your 3%? What's interesting is that it also seems to apply in terms of social media. So Graham Mackenzie from Scotland, who is a public health doctor and a genius at social media analysis, has looked globally at people who are tweeting in health and healthcare. And again, you know, what he's finding is that about 85% of all the content that gets retweeted, okay, originates with just over 3% of people that tweet. So the 3%, 85%, you know, seems to hold absolutely. So, and again, you know, we see that in the school. We see in terms of who's tweeting around the school. There's about 3% of people tweeting that account for about 85% of the retweets. And, you know, it's interesting because, again, you know, we're operating as change agents in a changing world, and people think, oh, social media is amazing, you know, it gives us the opportunity to connect with people all over the world and get to new audiences. But that's not actually the reality. The reality is that most social media operates within an echo chamber. And what we mean by that is most people who connect with each other on social media, they're people like us. You know, they're people that already think the way that we think. And actually, very little social media goes beyond the echo chamber. So even though we're in this world where, you know, we perceive, wow, we can connect with anybody, we tend to connect with people like us. And just this idea around the 3%. I just want to show you a bit of a complicated Twitter diagram, but just bear with me. And if you just bear with me on that, I'm going to have a little pause after that to hear a synthesis of chat and Twitter. So I just want to show you an example of this. So this is Node Excel, and what this is about is what you can see on the left-hand side here is is a big corporate account. So this is a big organisation, okay, in the world of health and care that has got a lot of followers and puts a lot of emphasis, you know, it's tweeting all the time. So, and you can see, if you look on the left-hand side here, you know, you can see this, can you just see this very big circle here? Okay, so that's a lot of activity. But if you look beyond that circle, what you can see is that there's a lot of material and tweets being broadcast, but it's a very thin line of people that are receiving it, and it isn't going any further. Okay, so this is a typical corporate healthcare social media account, and what we're doing here, we're broadcasting, we're putting material out, we're putting content out all the time, okay, but it isn't being very influential. Okay, what's much more interesting here is this. Okay, what's going on here are what we're calling our medical superconnectors. So these are a group of medics, and they're mostly clinicians, some of them are nurses and allied health professionals, who are at the centre of informal influence on social media. And everything that they put out on social media catches on fire. And can you see those concentric circles kind of going out here? Okay? That's a sign of a very, very influential person. So you've got a big healthcare organisation that has got a, a communications function, got lots of followers, is putting stuff out, but it doesn't influence. But in the middle here, you can see these medical superconnectors who are far more influential, okay, far better at getting the messages to spread than the big corporate account. And, like, we have to learn from this, how can we be this kind of superconnector? So I'm going to pause there. And first of all, I would like to hear from Kate and from Catherine about what's happening in the chat box. What are we hearing?
Hi, Helen, can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Yeah, so there's a whole lot happening in the chat box. We're actually getting into some interesting discussions around power and what it means. Firstly, I should say people are loving your sketch notes and the visuals. And also the Huxley quote about heresies. Three themes that I've noticed, and I'm sure Kate will add to this, that are connecting most with people, is permission. People have been saying, yes, permission is something that's key, and people have become afraid to act. Ben said that sometimes we have to remind ourselves that we already have the permission we need to improve things. People have also been picking up on power and wondering whether the word has negative connotations. Somebody suggested that introducing new power into the NHS is actively unwelcome. And Zoe made an interesting point. She said that the CQC forces old power, but rightly so. And she kind of raised the question of, once we're up to standard, will we then have more freedom to pursue new power? And I know that's a theme you're going to come to, is to how do we balance the best of both old and new power?
Yeah. Great. Thank you, Catherine, so much. Kate, do you want to add anything?
Yes, so I just wanted to add that kind of record-breaking news that we have over 750 people on today. So I think that's kind of like really something to celebrate. And within that is actually an amazing community. And that's kind of like the strong thing that's coming out to me today is the already people are connecting. Before you even talked about, the most important element is about creating connective communities. People already exchanging email addresses and becoming that connective community. So I think that's kind of like something to kind of like, take home, and be really, that we're really happy, glad to see that happening. The other thing is that there was a great question about how do we find our 3%ers? How do we connect? How do we find them? I think that's something that's really interesting. And the other bit of news that I've had via the in using YouTube is that we've got people joining already today via YouTube. So just a big shout out to those people.
Yeah, fantastic. Kate, thank you so much. That's it's really wonderful, and that's so kind of how we design things. So to see that connectivity taking place, it kind of warms my heart. So Lee, I think, is going to be our spokesperson in terms of Twitter. So hi Lee, can you hear me?
Hi everybody, can you hear me?
Yeah, loud and clear. So what's happening on Twitter, Lee?
Twitter is buzzing. It is incredible. people are really enjoying getting to know people all over the world. We've had a picture of some friends in New York. There's 50 of them in their picture. They're all listening intently to
Wow.
It's absolutely fantastic. Yeah, people from England, the UK, yeah, all over the world. It's brilliant, and they're all getting together in conversation and talking about the content. And just as Catherine said, people are loving the content and clipping and sharing the slides. And there's been lots of conversation about power and what new power means, and about shifts in mindset, and reflecting how you don't need a formal role in an organisation to be a change agent and to have power. And there was a reflection as well about how can you use that new power mindset to not alienate the old power and it be career limiting, which is an interesting reflection. And also talking about the 3% as well, people reflecting on how they can find their 3% and how they can engage with them as well. So really thinking about how they can put it in action already. So thank you everybody for keeping me so busy on Twitter. So do keep the conversation going there with hashtag S4CA. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Lee. Thank you all. So just maybe a couple of reflections. I mean, I completely agree with Zoe that you know, we'll never have a world where we don't have old power. I mean, I can't actually think of a single organisation, even very flat ones, that don't have some kind of hierarchy. And for those of us that work in health and care, you know, if we want to keep our patients and our service users safe, you know, and well, then, you know, we have to have some old power mechanisms. And actually, you know, when I think of the very best senior leaders in the systems, you know, the ones that really inspire me, what they do, they have old power authority, but they work in fundamentally new power ways. And I think, again, you know, it's why we need to be in the middle. And in terms of finding our 3%, I think there's many ways that we can do this. So we can actually do formal analysis where we do organisational network analysis. Or we can just go and ask people. You know, if we actually take the time to talk and find out, you know, who do you talk to, who influences you, and very often, you know, senior leaders in organisations are quite surprised because we don't know who our 3% are. So let's move on. Okay, we need as change agents to be rebels because, you know, we're standing up for, we're challenging things in our system that aren't great. And what do we mean by a rebel? We mean somebody who is the principal champion of a change initiative, a cause, or an action. And the thing about rebels is they don't wait in an old power way for permission to lead. They get on with it, you know, they innovate, they strategize. But the thing about rebels is that they're not like unguided Exocet missiles creating havoc around the organization. They're responsible, they work from a place of values, and they do the things that are right. And, you know, if we actually embraced our rebels in our organisations, we would understand just what a powerful role they play. Because our rebels name things that other people don't see. They point to new horizons and new possibilities. And this is probably the last bullet point, my favourite quote about rebels, you know, without rebels, our storyline never changes. And certainly for those of us that work in health and care or local government or in a police service, you know, our storyline has to change and rebels have to play their role. And so, you know, we put this picture of a T-shirt here. It says, raise rebels, not sheep. And, you know, we kind of have to get a balance, you see. If we kind of put loads of fences around people, you get sheep. So when people are saying, you know, I haven't even got permission to make the tiniest changes in my service, then, you know, that's where we're putting the fences around, and we've got to give people the room that they need. So it's great, you know, me here in Coventry giving this lecture saying, wow, all be a rebel, heretic, radical, maverick, deviant in your organisation. Okay, but what happens to people in organisations that operate in that way? You know, very often it feels like we're getting burnt at the stake. And, you know, there's a lot of actual evidence in neuroscience. What it tells us is that, you know, when people feel ostracised from others in their organisation, actually we feel it as strongly as physical pain. And you know, this is me quite often. I am this elephant, you know. Sometimes I'm standing in the middle of the room and I'm saying, look, we've got 20 years experience of doing this. We know how to do this change. And it just, you know, we feel like the invisible elephant. So we need to be rebels and we need to be boat rockers. And what do we mean? Okay, this comes from a classic source, Deborah Mayerson, and I'm going to give you that source in a moment. But we need to be the people in our organisations and systems who can rock the boat and lead change but manage to stay in it. And, you know, this can be a very difficult, very fine line between being different and fitting in, being inside and outside. But as boat rockers, we are the people that can challenge the status quo when we see that there's a better way of doing things. Now, when you look at some of the evidence around people that are able to keep on boat rocking, what we learn about these people is that they are capable of conforming and rebelling at the same time. And, you know, when I look at the little team that I'm part of, the Horizons team in the NHS, you know, we really strive to do this. So everybody who works in the Horizons team is a rebel, okay? It's kind of part of the what you need to join. But in a sense, we're working at the heart of the NHS, and if we just kind of went around rebelling all the time, we wouldn't last very long. So what we try to do as a team is to be really good corporate citizens, you know. We try to conform. We're in a bigger directorate, and we try and work really hard and well with all the other teams. We try and get our business plans in on time. We try and do our reporting very well, because we recognise in order to have the space to rebel, we have to conform to the things that other people think are really important. So we have to do both. And, you know, one of the things about being an effective boat rocker is about being able to work with other people to create success, okay? Number one rule of being a change agent is you can't be a change agent on your own, okay? You have to work with others to create success and not be the kind of person who gets perceived by other people to be a destructive or disruptive troublemaker. And my lovely colleague, Lee, who is on the Twitter chat today, she did this fantastic sketch note. You know, what's the difference between people that are successful boat rockers and people who fall out? Okay? What we see around people that are boat rockers is that they are typically very focused and passionate about the person-centred or people or patient-centred mission of the organisation. Okay, they're able to keep their perspective even when things are going wrong, so they don't sweat the small stuff. You know? They are unreasonably optimistic. They're able to generate energy in other people around them, and we're going to look at energy next week, by the way. They're able to attract others towards their ideas. They see possibilities and potential and opportunities, and they're able to work together effectively with other people. What we see when we look at the characteristics of people that tend to fall out of the boat, okay, very often we're complaining a lot, okay, but the focus of the complaint is around me, you know, the injustice of my situation, how badly I'm being treated, and very often people that have fallen out of the boat are very angry in a me-focused way. People that have fallen out will tend to be pessimistic because, you know, they've been here so many times and, you know, been promised so many things, and it hasn't happened, so why should I think that it's going to be different this time? And very often, people that have fallen out the boat are very energy-sapping, and they alienate other people around them. So when the positive boat rocker skips along with some great new idea, you know, for improving patient safety, all they can see is problems. And as a result, very often the people that have fallen out of the boat are alone. And of course, you know, all of us here taking part in the School for Change Agents, we aspire to be boat rockers and not to fall out of the boat. And I'm trying to be really careful here about not putting any judgment, you know, on this, because, you know, I see so many people, particularly in our health and care system, who start off being boat rockers, who are doctors, nurses, allied health professionals, social workers, who have a real sense of calling for the kind of work that they do, but find themselves in kind of very dysfunctional teams or toxic organisations, and they end up falling out. And, you know, I just took this quote from Benjamin Zander, who was the conductor of the Boston Philharmonic Orchestra, and he says, a cynic, after all, you know, somebody who's fallen out of the boat, is a passionate person who doesn't want to be disappointed again. And I think this really ties in with what we were saying, you know, about new power. It's about relationships. It's about trust. And I took this other quote, I think this is lovely, from Marcella Bremer, and she said, you know, if I choose to distrust it, the world feels terrible. And you know, when I think about myself, you know, when I'm feeling really energized and I'm feeling I can change the world when I'm a boat rocker, but then when I find myself, you know, in that situation where I'm falling out and I'm distrusting and I'm questioning, you know, that's not a great place to be trying to make positive change from. So, you know, those of you that are in a group, here's some questions that afterwards you might want to reflect on, okay? What are some of your insights around boat rocking and falling out? You know, when have you managed to rock the boat, when have you fallen out, okay? What happens that leads to people falling out, and, you know, how do we protect against this? So those are some questions that you might want to think about, okay? And I've got a question for you, okay? When we look here at this list of the attributes of boat rockers, okay, and there's 8 different descriptions of a boat rocker, okay. One of those 8 descriptions is far more important than the other 7 when it comes to managing to stay in the boat, okay. So what I'd like you to do in the chat room is, can you put, in terms of those descriptions of boat rockers, which one do you think is the most important when it comes to staying in the boat, okay. Lots of different ideas. Most of you are getting it right, actually. Most of you are getting it right. So the most important one when it comes to staying a boat rocker is together, okay? Because, you know, #1 rule of being a change agent is you can't be a change agent on your own. You know, however creative or fabulous we are, you know, or what great ideas or how clever we are. You know, we're in a system that you know, pushes us towards kind of normalization and conformance. And you know, the system will crush us in the end. So we have to connect with other people. And again, I've put a slide in here for you to look at afterwards. And again, there's lots more reading that we can do around this topic. And I tried to put something here for everyone. So there's some of you that like, you know, data and evidence. So look at the work of Deborah Mayerson, which is very research-based. There's some of you that want to look at this from a practitioner point of view and want tools, okay? Look at the work of Lois Kelly and Carmen Medina in terms of Rebel at Work. And then there's a whole series of other pieces there that are, you know, are reflections, okay? Jane Watson and Umar Hack and so on. And what I'm going to suggest now to Pardeep is, can you take the arrows away? So, final topic, you know, on this idea that that change starts with me. And I really like this quote here from Otto Sharma, and he says, you know, when we think about the success of our actions as change makers, it doesn't depend on the things that we do or how we do it, but on the inner place from which we operate. And again, just looking at some of the evidence, what do we know about successful boat rockers? Okay, #1, able to join forces with others to create action, absolutely. #2, it's really important that we're achieving small wins. You know, we want to create big transformational change, but sometimes we underestimate the power of small wins. Okay, because actually, when we're making actual real change happen, it gives us a credibility. It builds people's trust. It creates a sense of hope and possibility and confidence. Okay. #3 is our topic in the School for Change Agents, which is about having a strong sense of agency. Okay, and what do we mean by agency again? It's about power, you know, the belief that I'm personally able or I've got the power to actually create the change. And again, a lot of it is how I think, how I see the world. Okay, and I'm much more likely to view obstacles as challenges to overcome. I can do it, you know, linking into my sense of agency. And, through the 5 weeks of the School for Change Agents, we'll kind of be building on this, the idea that, being a great change agent isn't just about having the knowledge or skills technically, in terms of improvement or person-centered innovation. Those things are really important, but they're not enough. Being an effective change agent is about being change. It's about what each of us does every day, and other people understanding that we are change agents through our words and our actions. Just to show you this, okay, this is Don Obedian, okay, and he is, Don Obedian is one of my heroes, okay? Anybody that worked in quality improvement in healthcare knows Don Obedian. And he was writing 30 or 40 years ago, and he is like the kind of founding father of quality improvement in healthcare. And what Don Obedian did was he introduced, many of the initial kind of quality improvement frameworks that we know and love. So people think that Don Obedian is about how we structure and process systematic quality improvement. But actually what Don Obedian says is, if you want quality, you have to start from a place of love. And he says, if we've got love, if we start from that place, then we can work backward and we can do all the monitoring and improving the systems that we want. But we have to start from that place of love. And I think actually that one of the most important tactics for us as change agents is to be the people that outlove everyone else. Now, if we look at the history of outlaws, okay, the people at the edge, the people that were doing things in different ways, what we see time and time again, that outlaws live by a code. And in a sense, Don Obedian was an outlaw because what he was doing as a medic 30, 40 years ago was so different to what other people were doing. So actually by saying the things that he was saying about love, he was working with a code. And I just want to show you another outlaw now. So John Perry Barlow was one of my heroes, and he was the lyricist of the Grateful Dead. And he was also an activist. He was an open internet activist. And, this whole idea around, living by a code. He died last week and he was only 70, but when he was 30 years old, he wrote a code, okay, and he called it 25 Principles of Adult Behaviour. And I've put a link in there because I think it's really worth going and looking at John Perry Barlow's 25 Principles of Adult Behaviour. I think they are kind of amazing, and for a 30-year-old to have created them, I think is astonishing. But these, I think, are great. It's a great code for us as change agents, and I just picked a few of the 25 out, and maybe I'll just talk because we're running out of time. Number 3, never assume that the motives of other people are to them less noble than yours are to you. Always assume that the other person has got a noble intent. Okay. Expanding our sense of the possible. Thinking big. Okay. Expect no more of anyone than you yourself can deliver, okay? Let's tolerate ambiguity. Everything doesn't have to be neat and in a box, okay? Let's concern ourselves with what is right, okay, not who is right. It doesn't matter who's right. What matters is what is right, okay? How can we understand the needs of the people around us and respect them so we have to listen, okay? How can we reduce our use of the first-person pronoun so it isn't me all the time? How can we be praising at least as often as we're disparaging? Okay. We definitely want to become less suspicious of joy, because joy is at the heart of boat rocking. Joy is what brings us to work, that enables us to do the things that we want to do. Okay. As change agents, we want to live memorably because we are not choosing an easy life. We can't love anyone else unless we love ourselves. And most importantly, we need to be sustainable and we need to endure. So again, if you're in a group, think about, okay, we're outlaws as change agents. We're living on the edge. We're challenging the system. So what's our code? Okay. Very finally, I've just got a couple of things I want to talk about, and then, really, really quickly, I'm going to ask our chat and Twitter monitors to say some very final things. So I just want to talk to you about RCTs, okay? So what's an RCT? Those of us that work in a clinical environment, we think it means a randomised controlled trial, a planned experiment, a scientific experiment, okay? In the School for Change Agents, an RCT is a randomised coffee trial. Okay, we've done this the last couple of years, and it's been absolutely magical. What we need you to do, and again, we've got a link there, but we'll also send it on in our email newsletter. What we want you to do is to sign up to take part in an RCT, and we will randomly pair you up with somebody else, and it could be from anywhere in the world. And if you're near to each other, you can meet face-to-face, but most people do FaceTime or Skype or phone, so we have a virtual cup of coffee together, and it's a fantastic way to meet people that you wouldn't meet otherwise. And then very finally, we as the Horizons team, we do a series of virtual talks, which are called Edge Talks. And we're doing some special ones for the school for change agents. And we've got, what they are is it's an opportunity to take part in an interactive conversation. And we've got a whole program of them, but each one has only got 25 places. So again, there's information about those on the website, but if you want to sign up, you probably need to do so quite quickly, and you need to do it via the learning management system, which lots of you have signed up to already. So, that brings us to nearly to the end of Module 1. So I just want to ask Catherine, Kate and Lee to maybe say a few final things from the chat box and from Twitter. So quickly over to you, Catherine.
Hi, can you hear me, Helen?
Yes, loud and clear.
Yeah, so loads of chat, but I'm going to pick out 2 things which are to be continued. One person said, what do I do if I'm a boat rocker, but my boss just loves falling out? And so there's something about...
Okay, we'll carry on with that one.
Something about managing up and how you cultivate new power in others is interesting. And the second one was, somebody said, boat rockers in our organisation tend to leave. So there's a question there about perseverance and how we maintain our purpose that we'll pick up in the next modules.
Yeah, absolutely we will. There's a great point. Kate, anything to add?
Yeah, that kind of links on to the thing that I pulled out, which was about swimming lessons. And those that know me know that I love teaching swimming. So it was about when you fall out, it's about having your swimming lessons, which will link into the future sessions about resilience. It's important to learn how to swim so you can climb straight back in that boat.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you, Kate. And let's carry on with that metaphor. And absolute final word goes to Lee, who is looking after Twitter. What would you like your parting comment to be, Lee?
Hi, everyone. There have been so many brilliant comments, but as a parting comment, I love this tweet from Jasmine, who says, change begins with me, but together we can change the world. Use your power to make an impact today, right now.
Wonderful, and that's a fantastic segue or transition just to say we hope you've enjoyed today, and we'll carry on with the school. We hope you'll become a certificated change agent. We hope you'll do a randomised coffee trial and join our Edge Talks. And we look forward to seeing you next week when our focus is around agency, okay, the power to make a difference. So thanks everybody for taking part. Thanks for all your contributions. Let's keep building this community, and hopefully we'll see you all next week. So bye everybody.